So 100% of humanity has gut issues. It's just a matter of time before those gut issues result in some kind of chronic illness. You will never see me eating certain things because I'm like, well, that's processed garbage. Why would I eat that? I don't care that it's vegan. Like, I cannot serve the world if I spend the rest of my life in grief and sadness. What most people are obsessed with, oh, what do I eat? What do I eat? What do I eat? I'm like, it goes so much deeper than that. There's a lot of toxicity in the food system and the environment. So,
all right, good morning, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Fit Vegan Podcast. Today, I'm joined by a very special guest, Julie Brar. So Julie is a regenerative health practitioner and an award-winning holistic nutritionist who is passionate about supporting others to better health. Julie also holds several yoga certification and taught yoga for several years prior to shifting into regenerative health. Julie specializes in helping men and women who desire to create the best health possible through regenerative. That's a hard one to say often back to back. Health practices. She also uses nutrition detoxification protocols and various holistic health practices to reverse her Hashimoto's and hypothyroidism diagnosis, which we're going to dive into today. She also uses holistic health tools and cutting edge to help her clients achieve optimal health. She has multiple programs for individuals and groups online. She's also a published author in a collaborative book project, The Courage to Change, which hit the bestseller list on Amazon under motivation in 2019. She has been active in the animal rights movement since 2019, attending vigils, marches, and reaching out to elected representatives. She does the public outreach with the plant-based treaty. In her spare time, Julie loves to write, experiment with new recipes, and ride her Harley. She travels extensively with her fiance and their 3 dogs. All right, welcome to the Fit Vegan Podcast. I'm your show host, Maxime Sigouin, and I'm the founder and CEO of Fit Vegan Coaching, a company that is on a mission to help 10,000 people get lean, thrive, and reduce their risk of chronic illnesses by 2033 and 1 million by 2050. I believe that having a fit, healthy body and mind is the foundation to living an incredible life, and this is what the show will give you if you choose to listen and implement. Enjoy the episode and have a great day. Julie, welcome to the show.
hey, welcome. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, I love the touch of Harley.
Yeah. Something so random. Nobody would expect that someone like me rides a Harley, but yeah.
Is that how you guys travel? You guys travel with like the Harley kind of going around, or obviously I'm sure you're taking a flight from time to time, but do you like to do like road trips?
We've done a road trip on the Harleys from Toronto to Vancouver and through the States. If we've got the dogs, we don't have the Harleys, obviously.
I figured that'd be hard.
Yeah. And actually, a lot of times when we're traveling, if we're depending on where we're going, how long we're going for, the dogs are coming with us. And so sometimes, yes, we got to fly.
Nice. What kind of dogs do you have?
I have 3 Havanese. They're all this, 2 of them are sisters. And one of them's 14. Her name is Shanti. And then Coco and Harley are sisters. I'll let you guess why one of my dogs is named Harley.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they're going to be 8 this year. Yeah.
Nice. I'm not too familiar with the breed. Like, are those like small, medium, large dogs? Like, what's kind of like how much they weigh?
Well, Shanti is our biggest one. So she's about 12 pounds. And then Coco's the smallest one. She's about 9 pounds. Harley is probably about 10 pounds, maybe 11 pounds. But basically, the way I like to describe them is they're smaller dogs. If I put the 3 of them together, they do not add up to a golden retriever.
Okay. I say as you travel with your 3 dogs, we have one dog and he's like 25 pounds. And it's a pain in the butt with the cage and everything. Like, it's so much. So I figured it would be hard to travel with 3 big dogs if we go around.
Yeah. No, they're tiny and they fly in cabin with us if we're flying somewhere. And because there's 3 of them, usually one of my girlfriends gets lucky and gets a free trip somewhere.
Nice. Awesome.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I want to dive into your story. Like, I always love talking about dogs. So I always like to ask this question: what motivates you to do what you do? Because most people that are on a mission to serve others have like a deep why behind it. And so let's just dive into it.
Yeah. So, wow, we're going to get emotional already. I basically have a two whys. I mean, the first one is my husband passed away very suddenly from a heart attack. And at the time, I was trying to figure out like why that happened. And I kind of made him a promise on the day of his funeral that I would do everything in my power to understand what happened to him. He had a heart attack, and to see if it could have been prevented and could I help others. So that's the first piece of it. And then the second part of it is, and I know that you've gone through loss as well, and it's, completely reframes your perspective about life and what is important. But the
Yes.
second part of that is because of the circumstances of how he passed away, how sudden it was, there was no prep. It did a lot of like damage to my body, physically, mentally, emotionally. And I ended up about a year and a bit after his passing, I was diagnosed with hypothyroidism and Hashimoto's. Now, what I understand now as a practitioner is that, especially with, I think pretty much for every chronic health issue, trauma and stress play a huge role. And so for me, the tipping point was that trauma event of losing him suddenly, and then just my entire system going completely offline for such an extended period of time. Like I spent months in shock. I didn't even enter into grief for months and months because that experience was so traumatizing that my whole body was in a state of shock. I wasn't sleeping, I wasn't taking care of myself, and that has this downward spiral. So my
Yeah.
mission really is to share this information with people and give them the tools necessary to take their health back. Now, unfortunately, like my health journey ended up being quite a long drawn out process because I went to the conventional medicine doctors and the naturopaths and tried all kinds of things, did the medication, did like the IV therapy and the supplements and cryotherapy at one point. I did a plant-based version of keto. I was so
Yeah.
desperate. Um, but what I have learned in regenerative health in terms of understanding how the body functions, what the ideal diet is, and when someone is dealing with any type of chronic illness, how we can actually create health at the cell level and what that looks like is so radically different from what the current model is. And so anytime I have a hard day, I remind myself of why I'm doing this. Because I remember when I was, struggling in my body, I was depressed, at times suicidal, because I just didn't want to live in a body that was in constant pain anymore.
Yeah.
So anytime I have a hard day, I think back to that version of me that really needed this information. And so my job is to take this information and put it into the hands of as many people as possible so that they can get their health back on track, you know, and hopefully save people years and years of like time, energy, money, unnecessary suffering, so that they can get their life back. Because I wake up every single day, I am so grateful that I have the knowledge that I have. I'm so grateful for how good I feel now. I'm so grateful for my life. And even going through losing my husband the way that I did, I ultimately have profound gratitude, because I think it was really so that I could pay this message forward. As painful as it is to lose someone you love, like, I think that was ultimately the divine design.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I'm sorry for your loss.
Thank you.
Um, and yeah, isn't that weird how it kind of changes the path of your life? Because I feel like I wouldn't be doing what I'd be doing if it wasn't for it. I don't feel like you would be doing what you'd be doing. Like, If you don't mind me asking, how old was he? Because I know it's been like what, like over a decade now. I think he passed away.
This year will be 12 years.
Yeah.
Yeah. And earlier this month would have been, if he was still alive, we would have been married for 20 years.
Wow.
So, yeah, that was a hard day. It was a hard week.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was 51, so he was young. He in like he had when I met him, he had just stopped competing in cycling races. He was a triathlete before that. It's kind of very similar to you, super lean, super fit. But this goes to show that how people look is not the measure of health,
Yeah.
right? And I can start naming off all kinds of people who look a certain way, but I know their habits and I know that they have practices that are going to harm their health in the long run. And we can get away with a lot of stuff when we're younger, but to me, health really begins at the cell level. So that's kind of like my obsession, is really understanding how the body works, and that making sure that the human cell is properly supported for optimal health, right?
Yeah.
And I also believe that it is possible for people to be in, different shapes and sizes of body and still be healthy. Now, I'm not talking about being obviously what the situation in America where a lot of people are dealing with obesity. That's not healthy, but it's not necessarily about being a size two either, right? It really is about uncovering the ideal health for every individual body.
Yeah. A lot of the people that are like quote unquote like shredded or fit that could be on the cover of a magazine are on the unhealthier side because
Mhm.
of what is needed to kind of be at that level and the lifestyle choices that they make.
Yeah.
Um, so let me ask you this. I want to talk obviously about, improving the quality and the health of the cell. And I know we'll dive into that, but you brought up a point earlier that I don't get to talk about with a lot of people. Not everyone has lost a partner kind of
Mhm.
this early on in life. The When a partner passes, like the path that you went down, like your body was kind of in shock and it didn't start grieving until later. I was the same for me. I think I started like I grieved fully like this past October, and we just
Mhm.
passed 3 years
Yeah.
of her passing away. And to me, I went the opposite road. I went deep into work. I was like, I'm gonna work out, I'm gonna get shredded, I'm gonna work, 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 work. And I burnt myself out and I made myself sick
Mhm.
out of that. And so from your own experience, if there's someone that's listening that maybe has just lost someone that they love, like, what are kind of words of wisdom that you'd like to pass off from your own experience to them?
Quite a few. um, the first off is there's no right way to grieve. It is so individual.
Yeah.
Um, I'm in a relationship with someone now that I got into that relationship the year after my husband's passing. And now that I've had so much time and perspective, like, and I understand what I understand now about the grief journey, I really wish that I hadn't gotten into a relationship so early, because I really needed to go through more of my own process. And because I was still grieving someone, and then I was in this new relationship, it created a lot of complications that weren't necessary.
Yeah.
Um, and I mean, I had some really good tools like yoga and meditation and an amazing therapist on speed dial. But there were certain things that I had that information sooner, I probably could have moved through my grief journey a little bit more efficiently. Like, I felt like a part of me was betraying my husband by moving on with my life. And I
Yeah.
came across the work of Dr. Joe Dispenza much later, probably not till like maybe 2019. And Dr. Joe talks a lot about how he talks about like this whole grief journey, and also not living in the past and making a conscious choice to allow yourself to move through certain experiences, not just grief, but let's say you had a bad childhood or any sort of like not great events that you've gone through in your life, we have a tendency to keep replaying them in our mind and keep recreating the trauma within our body. And the way that our mind works and our body works is when we have certain thoughts, our body doesn't know and our mind doesn't know whether it's in the past or the future. So, why would we want to keep recreating something that is negative and keep ourselves imprisoned in states of being that are unhealthy for us, right? The other thing that I came across maybe a couple years ago, maybe 2, 3 years ago, was David Hawkins' map of consciousness. Have you come across this yet?
No, I haven't.
Oh, this is my motto. There's a map of consciousness printout that hangs in my office. And I'm not saying that certain states are bad. I'm just saying that we don't need to live our life in certain places forever. Like any emotion we have is fine, it's okay, it's healthy, but we don't need to live in a state of grief. We don't need to live in a state of anger or frustration or guilt or whatever it is. Like feel the emotion and then allow it to clear out. And that also means that not having the thoughts that keep recreating the experience and the emotion within the body, right? So, David Hawkins' map of consciousness is all about understanding how we're human beings, like spiritual beings, having a human experience, but then really consciously choosing, like, what is the state that I want to be in? No matter what has happened in my life. And, we're talking about one trauma event. I've had all kinds of trauma events in my life, but I don't need to keep replaying them in my mind and keep recreating them in my 3D reality, right?
Yeah.
I can consciously choose better. And had I come across David Hawkins' work and Dr. Joe's work earlier, I probably could have pulled myself out of misery a lot sooner. And the reason this really matters is remember that thoughts become things. So when we're having certain thoughts and our body and our mind doesn't know it happened 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, we're actually creating our own suffering within the physical body. And if we're having stressful thoughts, unhappy thoughts, we're actually creating potential illness.
Yeah.
So we are the ultimate design and we are the creator of our 3D reality. And having gone through this journey and also gone through other types of not great events in my life, I can unequivocally say that everything is always happening for us. But it's up to me to decide that I'm going to rise above this negative situation, you know?
Yeah.
Did
And I
it
feel like
suck
it
that
takes
my
time.
husband died? Like, hell yeah. It still sucks. It still sucks. But I can still have a good life. And that doesn't betray my love for him. That doesn't make our time together any less powerful or potent. But since ultimately we're here to make this world a better place, I cannot serve the world if I spend the rest of my life in grief and sadness.
Yeah. And I feel like that's a lesson that you have to learn over about with letting time pass. Because
Mhm.
I don't know for you, but for me, it was sudden, but it wasn't because she had cancer for almost 5 years. So when she passed, like I not unconsciously chose, I wanted to live in pain because it didn't feel fair that I got to live and she didn't. And
Mhm.
so to me, like I stayed in that state for a long time
Mhm.
until I was like, okay, like I do deserve to get out of that state. And my
Mhm.
story is very similar. I met my now wife 8 months after my partner passed away.
Wow.
And Ivy was a champ in like she was the partner after or your partner passes away. So I'm sure the person you're with can relate to the struggle and the pain of that. And it's
Mhm.
yeah, it's very challenging. So now I'm happy we talked about that because I don't get to talk about that aspect of things with a lot of people because fortunately most people don't have to deal with that until later on in their life, right?
Yeah. And I think, like, also, I'm sure it's similar for your wife. Like, my partner felt like he doesn't feel like this anymore because we've been together so long. But initially, he felt like he was in the shadow of this
Oh
person
yeah.
that was like this mythic, entity. And that's why I say, like, had I given myself a little more time, maybe it would have made for a smoother beginning to our relationship. But I'm very grateful and thankful that he stuck it out because we have a very good life together now. And I don't know if you're into plant medicines or anything, but I recently did a plant medicine journey and I had an epiphany during, I mean, we could talk about it later, but one of the insights that I got on one of my journeys was there was an image. Well, first there was an image of a lion, like a visual of a lion, like a real life lion. And then there was Michael, my partner's face was right there. And
Mm,
then there was my husband's face. And I got like this sense of like, there's no competition between them.
yeah.
There is no comparison. I don't need to pick one or the other. Like, I can love both and it's okay. And
Yeah.
I'm going to get a little emotional. And I think I just needed to resolve it for myself once and for all.
Yeah. Hey, I'll jump on that wagon. That's what changed a lot of things for me when I first came to LA. And I just did one ceremony in my life, and that was the
Mm,
only one. I didn't know what it was when I got there, and it just felt right, so I did it. But yeah, I did have that similar experience of I saw her with like gray hair. Like she was, she was older than what she was when she passed away in that image. And I just had this like hole in my heart. And she
mm,
just laid her head on my chest and just like melted into it, and it filled it up. It just filled that hole, and it just like completed. And that was like, yeah, there was a lot of other weird shit that happened that was super powerful, but like, but that was like one of those moments where I was like, oh, okay, like it's okay. Um,
yeah, yeah.
yeah.
And
All
I
right.
mean, the work that you're doing now is like, it's so important.
Yeah. Well, that's what I talked about her with that on her deathbed. Like I was, because she had her heart's stopped 3 times. Like, so the first time, like the cancer had taken over her lungs and she was only operating on 10%. So
Mm,
she kind of had like, had to put the tube in her throat and she could barely talk. And so like, that's one of the things she's like, hey, I want you to help people so they don't end up in my position, basically.
mm.
Um, and so that's kind of what made me like push and kind of blow it out of the water the way that I did after she passed. But yeah, if it wasn't for that, I wouldn't be down this path. And, I don't think we'd both be here talking about this.
Oh, I know I wouldn't.
Yeah.
I know, I know for a fact, like this whole journey has forced me to become such a better human being in so many ways, and has challenged me to, and now that I feel a immense responsibility to always be learning, to always be growing, to always be looking for the best of the best so that I can help others in a more powerful way. So, not only can they live their best life, but if they are in a state of illness, they spend less time in chronic illness. Because I was in chronic illness for years and years and years and years. And I like how I put together protocols now for people. Like I can put something together that can get them out of a state of suffering within a few months. But I had to find all that stuff.
Yeah.
Right? Like I would find one thing and it would work. And, I would kind of like make this sort of like a quantum leap in my health. And then I would kind of stagnate. And then I would need to go and do the research to find the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. And all that takes time, it takes effort, it takes investment.
Yeah.
So, and a lot of things that I've tried, like I know unequivocally what works, what doesn't work and why. And and I get a lot of people who approach me with like different things, and because I have a deep understanding of how the human body works, I can say yay or nay to things pretty quickly, because keeping in mind how everything comes together, then I know like, okay, yeah, this would be great because it'll help support this. And no, this would not be so good because it's going to impede something in the body, or it's just not, quality enough, or it's just smoke and mirrors.
Yeah, which there's a lot of that in the health industry.
Oh, yes. I
Yeah,
could write
there's
a
a ton.
book.
Yeah, there's a ton of it. So let's dive into the health component. So, one thing you mentioned earlier is you were able to reverse, Hashimoto and I think it was hypothyroidism, right?
Mhm.
Yeah. So what was the journey like of taking that on, and kind of what is the process that you kind of figured out along the way?
So it really comes down to like how our cells function, right? So a human cell needs optimal nutrition, right? So that was part of the equation, was really optimizing the nutrition. And so much of what people spend their grocery dollars on is, subpar because it's
Yeah,
grown in
shit
nutrient.
food. Let's be
Yeah. Shit food.
upfront.
Yes. Thanks. Thanks. I was trying to be
I'll
polite, but
say it.
thank you. But
The
yeah, it's
podcast is rated as explicit when I upload it, so it's fine.
okay. So, it's GMO, it's
Hmm.
filled with toxic chemicals and herbicides, it's grown in nutrient depleted soils. And then if you walk into a typical grocery store, a lot of it is processed. And this goes for the plant based stuff too. Like, it's processed. Like, you will never see me eating certain things because I'm like, well, that's processed garbage. Why would I eat that? I don't care that it's vegan. Like, I care
Yeah.
about the quality, right? So that was one part of it. The second part of it is all disease begins in the gut. In 6 years of doing what I do now, I've never come across anyone with a healthy gut. And I actually have a background in clinical iridology. So when I look at someone's eyes in person, and even sometimes with pictures, like I saw somebody had photographed this beautiful actress and she has blue eyes, and I looked at her eyes and I'm like, wow, she has lymphatic stagnation and she's got gut issues. So 100% of humanity has gut issues, and it's just a matter of time before those gut issues result in some kind of chronic illness, right? And so that was the second thing that I addressed in my initial protocol for myself, was going deep on gut health. And I still have more gut stuff to do because that's how nuanced our body is things don't just resolve because you do something for 30 days or 60 days or 90
Yeah, it's
days.
solved
Like,
forever.
like that's not how it works. Plus, we live in this toxic soup environment where we're constantly breathing in chemicals and toxins and metals that we don't even know. Most people give
Yeah.
no thought to the fact that your skin is the largest organ, and anything that's in the atmosphere can penetrate into your skin and get into your bloodstream.
Yeah.
So most people are not taking care of toxicity. They're hyper focused on diet. And that is like what most people are obsessed with. Oh, what do I eat? What do I eat? What do I eat? I'm like, it goes so much deeper than that. That's just one tiny part of the equation, right? Are your cells communicating? For most people, their cells are not communicating. That's why they have illness. There's a cellular breakdown happening, right?
Yeah.
They're,
Did you ever read Fatal Conveniences or Inconveniences?
I
Karen
haven't read it,
Aline?
but I have heard of it. Yeah, but
Okay.
yes, I have heard of it.
Yeah.
So with the initial protocol that I did, I addressed diet, gut health, chemicals and heavy metals, parasites, big one.
Yeah.
Everyone's got parasites, including the vegans. And I can tell you, it goes a lot deeper than most people like to think about, because I've done like multiple parasite protocols since the start of this year, and my body is still releasing parasites, still. And I did 111 days of juicing and superfoods. And so it goes way deep. In fact, just yesterday, I went and I got a live blood analysis with a fellow practitioner friend of mine. And we can still see that there are parasites in my body. And she's like, holy smokes, you do so much. I'm like, yeah, but I had years where I ate fast food, processed food, alcohol, dairy, like you name it, I did it. and I did not have any respect for this physical temple and how those things create illness within the body. So now I'm undoing decades of damage. And no,
Yeah.
it doesn't just get resolved in a few months. Like, that's not how it works, you know? So she's like, "You're taking this so calmly." I said, now I can see, based on the live blood analysis, where my focus needs to be for the next protocol. Like, this doesn't faze me whatsoever. I feel amazing. Like, to the average person, I look super healthy, but I'm interested in biohacking and cellular health. I'm not interested in like surface stuff, right? That's why I'm willing to like get myself under a microscope to see what's really up, right?
Yeah.
And then thankfully, because of all the different protocols that I work with and the knowledge that I have, I usually can devise something to tackle whatever the issue is. And I mean, I have zero obvious health issues right now. I have nothing going on. I feel great. I don't have any aches or pains, but I'm like basically I'm entering the biohacking phase of my life, where I'm like reverse
Yeah.
aging. That is where I'm interested in. I'm not interested in just being baseline.
Yeah. You familiar with Brian Johnson? You heard of him
Yes, I
before?
know. Yeah, I
Yeah. What
don't
do you
quite
think about
agree.
his protocol?
Well, I don't agree with supplementation,
Okay. Yeah, I know he's
right?
big on that. He's taking like 100 pills a day, I think, or something.
Yeah, so my thing with that whole protocol, and he's got deep pockets, so I'm sure that everything that he has is high quality. But just keep in mind that at the cell level, when we take supplements and we take isolates, there is a potential for essential nutrients to get displaced. And though that will create imbalances over time, it may not be immediately obvious. It could take months, possibly years, who knows? The other thing to keep in mind with supplementation is that your liver has to process it. And I can tell you in my clinical practice what I see with every single person who comes to me, and especially a very disturbing trend since the start of the year. So everyone's gut is offline. They've got gut issues, they've got liver issues, they've got adrenal issues. Now, none of those things shock me because there's a lot of toxicity in the food system and the environment. So, boom, that's going to take the gut out. People don't give second thought to taking pharmaceuticals. Remember that pharmaceuticals are petroleum based and they are chemicals. Chemical and heavy metal toxicity is the root cause of diseases. So, if you are willingly putting petroleum based chemicals into your body on a daily basis, that has negative downstream implications for your gut, for your liver, for your kidneys. Why is somebody who's on medication over time, their dosages go up and then they need other types of drugs? Because they're not
Yeah.
actually addressing any real thing, right? So the issue with supplementation is, especially if it's not high quality, what is the negative impact it's going to have potentially on the gut, the liver, and the kidneys, right?
Yeah.
So that's one of my issues with his particular protocol, is the high amount of supplementation. And my thing also is that if you give your body the highest nutrient density foods, which are actually superfoods, you don't need to supplement. As someone who's 100% plant-based, I don't supplement omegas and I don't supplement B12, and my blood numbers are perfect. Why? Superfoods. Simple as that. I focus my diet on superfoods and whole foods and herbs. So I don't need anything else. I don't need to be taking 10,000 supplements a day, right?
Yeah.
So it's when you understand your biology, you can make better decisions. And as a household, I remember once upon a long ago, we used to spend like $400, $500 a month on supplements. Boom, that expense has gone away, right? It's about quality and it's about getting the nutrients in, and superfoods. Like, I'm a big proponent of superfoods. I've used superfoods now for 5 years. I'll never not use them, right? And I'm very, very picky about where I source things from, because there's a lot of stuff on the market that's trash, and I'm not going to name names, but there's a superfood line that calls themselves a superfood line, and they're barely a vitamin. And there's a lot
Yeah.
of people in the health space that endorse that particular product.
Yeah. I feel like a safe rule for superfood brands, the bigger they are, probably the shittier the ingredients are. If you go for like the more smaller shop, they still care about quality. They didn't have to sell out to kind of mass produce, or they didn't get bought in by a big
Mhm.
corporation that was trying to scale the business, lower the cost of the ingredients. Like, I used to work in the supplement space, and you just saw it all the time, right? As soon as they got bought in, they would come in. The first thing they do is they lower the cost of all the ingredients, which meant lowering the quality of it so they can increase their margins.
Mhm.
And then yeah, the product went to shit, and everyone was like, "I don't feel as good as I did when I took these superfoods before." Um,
Yeah, and so like the stuff that I use is um, dehydrated at 78 degrees, which means it preserves all the nutrients in the enzymes. Technically, they are raw living foods because the raw standard is 115 or 117. So it's
yeah,
far below the standard of raw, like at 78 degrees, like, yes, it's raw living food. And a lot of people don't realize is that that really matters. Like when you start dehydrating things at higher temperatures, you're destroying the nutrients and the enzymes, right?
yeah.
And what our body needs is the nutrients and the enzymes. That's what we need from food. So I actually don't do any cooked food anymore.
I was gonna ask if you're a raw vegan.
I'm 100% raw. And I was like 80% raw for the longest time. And I was always like, well, I just eat a little bit of cooked food. But just replace that with I just drink a little bit every day. I just do a little bit of cocaine. I just do a little bit, a little bit, a little bit. You know what? It made a huge difference. When I went 100% raw, I was like, oh my God, how did I not know this? Like, I,
um,
I
let me
feel
ask you this:
amazing.
do you know who Johnny Juicer is?
Yes, I do.
Okay,
I don't know
great
him
friend.
personally, but I know his work, and I think we have some people in common.
Yeah, great friend of mine. I play basketball with him like every few weeks. We talked about like being raw vegan and juicing. Where do you live in the world? Do you live in a cold? Do you get winter?
I get winter, but I don't stay in winter. I leave.
Okay, because I went raw vegan in Quebec and Canada, and that was a miserable winter for me. I felt
So
great in terms of energy, but I
yeah.
was like four sweaters every day.
So the first like when I actually the first time I really experimented with it, I did almost 3 months 100% on fruit raw
Yeah,
in a Canadian winter. And the reason that I was able to do it was I was having some tea. So I would have like stinging nettle tea and that kind of stuff. And it kind of tied, and we have a sauna in our house. So I'd have a sauna, I'd have
yeah,
baths. So that kind of got me through the winter. But I felt a huge difference in everything in my body in terms of like whatever inflammation I had just totally went away. I was
yeah,
like, holy smokes. I felt like I was in a brand new body. Like we'd go out for a walk and I said, like, I don't recognize this body. Like I feel so good. Um, and then of course, yeah, we don't stick around in the winter. We leave. We go
yeah.
somewhere warm. Like my rule is if I start to lose my earth runner tan on my feet, we
Hmm.
need to leave. We need to go somewhere.
Where do you guys go?
It depends on the year. Last year was LA. This year is probably going to be Florida for a
Okay.
stretch of time, like for 2 to 3 months. One year it was like Barbados, I think. Not this previous winter, but the winter before we did that. Yeah, so we kind of like mix it up, you know.
Yeah. Nice. I'm in LA now. I just stay here all year round. It makes it easier to be in the
Yeah,
heat.
well, I used to live there, so I get it. What part of town?
Thousand Oaks.
Oh yeah, yeah, I know
Yeah.
Thousand
So the
Oaks.
valley. I say LA because a lot of people listening are not from here. So
Yeah,
it looks like it's in the
Thousand
same
Oaks is
area.
fine. It's not exactly Compton.
Yeah, no. I love it out here. It's super quiet.
Yeah, it is the more chill side of town.
Yeah, definitely. There's way less crime. LA's being like LA is crazy now. So I'm happy I'm out here. Let's talk about your, I think you said 111 days juice
Mhm.
fast with superfoods.
Yeah.
What made you want to do it? What was the intention? What was the protocol behind it? And then we can talk about the insights after.
So the intention really was when we did our trip to Southern California over the winter, it was really hard for me to be 100% raw all the time because we were traveling and we actually drove. And so, not every place, like I did my superfoods all day long, I did a lot of fruit, but sometimes I couldn't get a raw dinner. And by the time I came home, I just felt really inflamed. So, I knew while we were driving back that I was going to do an extended juice fast. And initially, it was going to be 90 days. And then one of my practitioner friends did this whole like 4-day plant medicine journey where it was like 3 different plant medicines over 4 days. And then she talked about her experience. And I was like, yeah, I want to do that. Right. Like, I was like, the medicine's calling me. It is time. Because the previous plant medicine journey I'd done, it had been a while. So I was like, well, it doesn't make any sense for me to juice for 90 days, go back on food, and then go back to like juicing because really the plant medicines are so much more effective if there's less density in the body. It's
Yeah.
like they go right into, they don't have to. And this is why I think, because actually a friend of mine who's also vegan, um, and eats very similar to how I eat. He's not 100% raw, but he's high raw. He recently did an ayahuasca ceremony and he didn't purge. And I think part of the reason he didn't purge is because when your body is like really cleaned up, then the medicine works more effectively and there's none of that. I think the purging in certain plant medicines has to do with the fact that most people that enter into those ceremonies, their diet is not typically clean. And maybe a few days leading up to the journey, they go, a lot of fruit, a lot of juicing, but there's all this other stagnation that is still sitting in their colon. And so, of course, it's going to be a bit of a rough ride. So, yeah, that's how
Yeah.
I ended up doing 111 days. And as soon as I was done the ceremony, I said to my friend, my practitioner friend who was supporting me on it, I said, okay, my body feels complete. I think I'm going to end off this juice fast on 110. She's like, well, why wouldn't you just go 111? And I'm like, you know what? That's a good point. Like, we'll do 111. Yeah. And I mean, I did
Well,
other things in the midst of that. Like, there was like 7 days in the middle of it where I just did plant enzymes and molecular hydrogen water. After that was done, I was like, I felt called to go back on antiparasitic herbs. And because I had shifted the internal terrain in my body so drastically, all of these parasites started releasing out that I'd never seen before. And I was like, whoa. But that just goes like parasites are a response to the internal environment within the body. And so when there's a lot of stagnation, a lot of mucus, a lot of, acidity, they will stay. They will stay. And you can go ahead and get, do a stool test and it'll come up negative, but that doesn't mean they're not there. And I mean, I'm still releasing parasites every day.
yeah. So what are some of the insights that you got from, because were you doing like resistance training? Like were you obviously I'm sure you're working during that time, but like were you doing some form of like strenuous exercise throughout those 111 days?
Yeah, I mean, there were huge insights. Number one, it's about the nutrients. It's not really about the calories. I know the whole health and wellness world is hung up on counting macros and calories. It's really about the nutrients. So here I was giving my body all of these nutrients in liquid form and having zero issues with my energy or mood or anything. Like the odd day where I was experiencing detox symptoms or mood shifts, it had to do with like stuff that needed to release out of my body. But I was working throughout, I was exercising throughout, I still saw my clients, I had my typical schedule, no downtime whatsoever. But I also think part of that is I went into it with a very clean diet. So I didn't go from a sad diet into something like this. I went into it as somebody who was like, already very, very clean to begin with. So this was kind of like the next level. So yeah, it really is about the quality of the nutrients. And yeah, easier to manifest things. Like I would think about something and it would just kind of show up like the next day or a couple days later. That's still happening, actually. It's kind of wild. Um, yeah, like all the inflammation that I was dealing with just went away. Like
Yeah.
I would say like a month, 6 weeks in, it was gone. And
Yeah.
I also like, it's also about mindset. So I set my intention, and there's like a group of us that get together almost weekly for a vegan brunch. And I would show up at our vegan brunches with my molecular hydrogen water, my superfoods, my cold pressed juice, and we would go to different restaurants. Now, some restaurants that actually had cold pressed juice, I would just order their stuff. But a lot of restaurants didn't have that. So I would, come show up with my stuff. And I was okay doing my own thing. Like, I didn't care that, and I'm lucky that I have a circle of friends that loves it when I go down this rabbit hole of experimenting on myself, and they don't judge me because I'm not eating like, you know, whatever they're eating, right? We're all adults, you
Yeah.
know?
Which is
Um,
tough for a lot of people because they don't have that surrounding.
yeah, and they go into the social pressure, but it's like, what does it take away from you if I choose to put something healthy into my body? Like, why is that a problem for you? If
Yeah.
it's not a problem for me, like I'm the person who's doing the thing and I want to do the thing for whatever my reasons are. For me, it was just an experiment. Like I really wanted to see how would my body respond. And do we like, because we've been told our entire life we need to eat breakfast, lunch, and dinner and 2 snacks. But do we? Well, if your food has no nutrients in it, of course you're hungry all the time. Of course you need to eat all the time, because at the bare minimum, maybe you'll get 10 to 20% of the nutrients that your body actually needs into your body by eating all day long. But if you're getting nutrients into your body, then you don't need to eat all day long, right? And that's what I find for myself. Like the quality of nutrients that I'm putting into my body are so high quality, I never get hungry. I don't think about food all day long. And because I've been addressing the parasites, I get no cravings for anything ever, right? I don't crave
Yeah.
sugar. I don't crave carbs. I don't crave French fries. And I don't crave any junk ever, because the the entities that crave that kind of stuff are the parasites. And here's the thing for people who eat meat, fish, I'm not picking on you guys, but if that's the kind of stuff you eat, you're putting parasites into your body. And remember that parasites can control your nervous system, they can control your thoughts, they can control your emotions. And so the very thought of you considering a parasite cleanse is actually deeply offensive to them. And so they will control your thoughts in such a way where you'll actually lash out at somebody suggesting that you do a parasite cleanse, because they'll be like, well, they don't want to die, is really what it comes down to.
Yeah.
So they will manipulate your thoughts and your feelings, and they will actually talk you out of the very things that will help you.
I remember my late partner, she did, yeah, parasite cleanse. She do the hydrocolon therapy. She do the something with like you pull out the blood and you pump oxygen into it and then you re-put it into your blood, the hyperbaric chambers. Do you experience with like oxygen treatment as well?
I've done hyperbaric chamber before.
Like the medical grade or like the soft one, basically, that are on the
No,
ground?
the medical grade. I did
Yeah,
it when
yeah.
I was in Mexico, maybe 2, 3 years ago. I mean, I experiment with all kinds of stuff. It was an interesting experience.
The hyperbaric?
Yeah, it was very
Yeah.
interesting.
I felt like Superman after.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
yeah, I had some pretty good workouts. I felt phenomenal. Um, I want to talk about water real quick because you brought up your water bottle.
Hmm.
Um, what water system do you use? Because I know there's different kind of brands out there. Um, we have a can. We don't have not a. Is it a Kanken? No, it's not a Kangen. A Berkey. We have a Berkey water filter at the house. And then my friend had a thing called a water smacker. I don't know if you
Mm-hmm.
ever heard of that, but it kind of charges your water.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm curious. Is like I know I have a friend that like geeked out on water, and he's been studying it for like a decade, and there's just so much to it. But love your thoughts as to why you choose to drink specifically that water.
So I went down the rabbit hole on this last year because I actually sat in on a training with Hope for Cancer centers in Mexico. So they were doing this whole presentation on molecular hydrogen and what they have seen in their patients using different types of molecular hydrogen devices. And so when I got on that call, I was like blown away. Like they went through every system and they weren't selling anything, they were just sharing their research. They went through every system in the body and the benefits that they have seen using molecular hydrogen. There were like zero downsides. It was all positive, right? So for those that don't know, molecular hydrogen or hydrogen is known as the source molecule. It's how all of life came to be. And it is the smallest molecule. So when we have molecular hydrogen water or some type of molecular hydrogen going into our body, that hydrogen has the ability to penetrate into every single cell. And it can cross the blood brain barrier and displace toxicity, toxins, right? This is really, really exciting because there's zero downsides to molecular hydrogen. It's not toxic because it's native to our body, right? So what it does is it reduces inflammation. It's a selective antioxidant. It upregulates the mitochondria, upregulates genes. There's a whole bunch of really amazing benefits to it. Now, in terms of hydrogen, I actually know someone who's like got a nonprofit where he's been researching molecular hydrogen now for 10 years. And I saw him in Miami at an event maybe about 5 weeks ago. And I asked him, I said, what is the best way to get molecular hydrogen into your body? He said, water, right? Now, unfortunately, as with all trends, in the health space, there's a lot of people that are selling quote unquote molecular hydrogen bottles that actually don't make hydrogen, right? And some of them are very expensive, like about $300, and their membrane in the base of the bottle doesn't separate because the process of electrolysis to separate the hydrogen from the oxygen atom is kind of a dirty process, and there are chemical byproducts that result. So if you don't have a proper membrane, you can actually be leaching those chemicals into the water, and someone is drinking that water thinking they're drinking hydrogen water, but they're actually drinking chemicals and metals,
Mm.
right? So then once I got on that call for that cancer center, I started searching for like, okay, this is really exciting. I want to bring this to my clients. Who's got something that actually works? And that is what led me down this whole rabbit hole of research. So the bottle that I use and recommend has the highest membrane in the world. Actually that membrane isn't available to anyone else because it is specifically made for this bottle. Um, the person who created the bottle actually has the predecessor to the bottle in use in his clinic in Lisbon and has been using it for 8 years. His specialty is working with molecular hydrogen and frequencies. So the bottle has frequencies. The frequencies infuse into the water, which actually means, like, remember, water is a living entity. It's not dead. It has intelligence. But most people use it as this thing, as an object, right? So when you don't have the proper water in your body, even if you're drinking water, doesn't mean you're hydrated. And that means that water is the carrier molecule for everything, for getting nutrients and oxygen to your cells. So if you're dehydrated at the cell level, even if you're drinking water, it's not getting to where it needs to go. Now
Yeah.
I'm going to piss off everybody in the alkaline water space. Alkaline water is the worst water you can put into your body because it will actually, first of all, our stomach pH is supposed to stay acidic. So when you drink alkaline water, you're potentially affecting the stomach pH. What I have heard from other clinicians who have clients who drink high alkaline water is that they end up with really serious gut issues. So we should not be changing the alkalinity of the water in order to drink it. It needs to be at an ideal setting, and usually that's 4.5 to 6.5 pH, right? So yes, human beings were an alkaline species, but we're only slightly alkaline. Remember that the pH scale goes from 0 to 14.
Yeah.
Our blood pH is supposed to stay at 7.4. So now back to water. This whole water quality thing is kind of a big deal because tap water is, beside alkaline water, tap water is the worst water because it's got fluoride, it's going through old pipes, so it's got all kinds of metals in it, it's got potential pathogens in it. All those pharmaceuticals that millions and millions and millions of people take every day, well, they're peeing them down into the toilet, and that is actually finding its way into the water supply. So you're inadvertently taking pharmaceuticals that aren't even designed for your body and you shouldn't be taking anyway, right? So there's a plethora of issues with that type of water. Now, for when I decided that I wanted to start drinking molecular hydrogen water every day, I needed to actually, because the bottle I use isn't a filter, it's not marketed as a filter, it just makes molecular hydrogen. That's all it does, right? So we used to have an RO system on our house. Well, RO water and distilled water is essentially dead water. There's nothing bad in it because all that stuff gets removed, but so do the naturally occurring minerals. We're electrical beings. We're supposed to have minerals. And that is what helps to structure and carry the information in the water. So if you're drinking RO water, where are the minerals?
Yeah.
You know? So we actually pulled out the RO system. My water guy thought I was on crack. We had him put in a high carbon filter, but I knew with the high carbon filter that the fluoride wasn't getting removed. So we actually ended up getting a Berkey, countertop Berkey with fluoride filters. And I can tell you the first time I drank the water from the Berkey, I was like, holy smokes, this tastes totally different.
Yeah.
So I used the filtered water from the Berkey for my hydrogen water. And I drink hydrogen water all day long. I either have superfoods, cold pressed juices, or hydrogen water. And I actually did the live blood analysis yesterday to see what happens if I just have water, what happens if I have hydrogen water. At the blood level, it looks totally different. Like when I just had a little bit of water and she did the live blood analysis, all my red blood cells were clumped together. Yeah. Even though it was filtered water, everything's clumped together. So I did a cycle on my hydrogen bottle. I ran sun frequencies into the water. I just did a 3-minute cycle. The bottle can do 3, 6, and 9-minute cycles. So I did a 3-minute cycle, drank the water. 2 minutes later, she got a sample, and I posted it on my stories for today.
That's what I saw. That's what I saw when I was looking at it.
And the red blood cells had actually started to separate, which is what we want.
Yeah.
We need the red blood cells to move. They need to move to bring the oxygen and the nutrients to the cells. And so I wanted to see for myself, does this thing actually work? And yes, it does.
Yeah.
And it is basically the best quality water that I could put into my body. And you know, I've been using it for 8 months. I've felt a huge difference in terms of my energy. I don't get sore with workouts. I recover faster. I'm able to do things I should not be able to do. I also find that I'm not as hungry, and that makes perfect sense because if you're getting better blood flowing throughout your body, our blood cells are responsible for bringing oxygen and nutrients to the cells. So if I'm putting better quality water into my body, that is going to help facilitate better nutrient absorption at the cell level. So of course I'm not going to be as hungry. So I'm guessing that I invested in the bottle like almost a year ago, and I was like one of the first to get the bottle. So I've been using the bottle now for 8 months, 9 months. I probably save on average about $300 a month in money I was spending on groceries, money I was spending on other things that I just don't need anymore.
Yeah.
because I've got therapeutic water all day long. you know,
Yeah.
if I get a headache, I had a headache 2 nights ago. So I'm like, okay, which one of my biohacks? I'm like, I'm just going to have some hydrogen water. So I had a couple bottles pretty close together. The headache pain was gone by 85%. So then I had one last bottle, boom, headache gone, right? So I don't take like Advil, Tylenol, any of that stuff. Like if I feel like any weird ache, pain, whatever in my body, I'm like, I'm just going to drink more hydrogen.
Yeah.
And because it's non-toxic, whatever my body doesn't use, it's going to eliminate.
So let me say a few questions for you. One is, yeah, I
Yes.
don't think some people have experienced like I told this to someone. I was like, I'm drinking. You can tell when it's dry water, it's wet water. Like dry water, you
Mm-hmm.
drink it and it just like slushes around in your stomach. Like you can tell that it's not hydrating. You're just left feeling more thirsty when you're done
Yeah.
drinking. When you drink good quality water, you're like, oh, I'm actually hydrated. I have to
Yeah.
ask because a ton of people listening are going to be asking, where do you get the bottle and what is the brand? Because I feel people hate me if I don't ask. So what's the brand?
It's called Cell Power. I have it on my website. I
Okay.
do have it listed. It's in my Instagram links too. Like in my Instagram, it says my favorite products. And I actually have a video for everything that I utilize and why I utilize it because it's not random. Like I test everything. And there are things that I um, test and I'm like, yeah, that's not good enough. Like I'm just not going to work with that. Like I'm always testing something. But the things like in terms of like specific protocols, like a lot of people, and I just want to explain this, like a lot of people message me because they hear me talking about parasites. They're like, okay, what's the exact protocol? I'm like, the protocol depends on you and your state of health. Like I can't just sell you some anti-parasitic herbs. Like what if your elimination pathways aren't open? You're on the standard American diet. Like you're going to completely mess up your system, right?
Yeah.
So I don't have everything listed. Like if somebody has like autoimmune conditions or they've got like serious stuff going on, like we need to actually really create something that is tailored to you that's going to address what's happening. Otherwise, we could pretend if I just like, and other people don't have these standards. Other people will just throw up links and, good luck to you. But
Yeah.
I like to make sure that whatever I'm recommending is going to be therapeutic. So I know that this is going to work because I know how that it's been used in clinic for 8 years. I also know like it has two labs, hydrogen testing labs that are independent of the company that makes the bottle, tested this bottle and gave it like, a 5-star rating, said like it's the best bottle in the world. I know the components in the bottle. So all this stuff really matters. And in this particular case, it's like you do not want to be getting something that's $40 on Amazon. Like
Yeah.
you're better off to not do that and just save up because those cheaper hydrogen bottles, they don't make hydrogen and they're probably leaching chemicals and metals into the water because the electrodes in the base that are supposedly making hydrogen are using the wrong type of metal, and that metal is actually eroding and creating this chemical byproduct that and metals that are leaching into the water, which you don't want.
Yeah. And
Right? We're supposed to get the heavy metals out of our body, not to put them back in.
yeah. And for everyone listening, I'm going to put all of the links below to your Instagram and to your website so people can kind of go and check out the water bottle and the products. What is something that you're working on that you're excited that people can kind of go and check out? And I'll make sure to link it down below for everyone.
Um, what am I currently working? Well, I'm going to be starting to test something new for detoxification. That is, and I'm going to so everything when I test things, I usually test in 90-day segments to make sure that something is like working the way that it's supposed to. So I'm going to give this thing a test. I'll probably will do a live blood analysis at the end of 90 days to see what it looks like on the blood.
Yeah.
And then if it's solid, then I'll start working with it in terms of recommending it to clients. If it's not solid, then I'll stick with what I have. I have a pretty robust toolbox. Like I kind of cover basically anything to help the body to function more efficiently. So nutrition, obviously, gut health stuff, parasite protocols, biohacks, because the biohacks are all about getting the cells to function better. And the better your cellular function is, the better your cellular communication is, the better your body is going to function overall. Like I just like to think of it as like we're taking the roadblocks away because we live in such a toxic environment with such a poor quality food system. It's really important for all of us to be diligent. And a lot of times with some of the things that I recommend, people are spending money on stuff that's not working. So usually I'm like, let's transfer some of those dollars to better places and you can get more. And I was thinking about this actually. I was like, yeah, like if I think back to what I used to spend a lot more on all kinds of things. But now I'm invested in the right things. So I don't need to like keep, you know,
Yeah.
spending and spending and spending. So it's about being smart.
Yeah. But it sounds a lot like efficiency as well. And so
Yeah.
for the people listening, I'll put all of Julie's link down below in the description so you guys can go check out her website, which has YouTube channel as well, her Instagram. You'll have all the links on there. Julie, we're short on time, but I want to say a massive thank you for taking the time to record with me today. It was super valuable. I know people learned a lot. We definitely haven't. I don't think I've recorded an episode going down that path of health. A lot of time we stick on the athletic and kind of nutrition side. So it's been very interesting, and it brought me back to kind of like the cancer days of my life. And so I appreciate you
Mhm.
being willing to dive deep with me and share vulnerably. And yeah, any last words of wisdom you'd like to share with the audience?
Yeah. So my final words of wisdom are remember that your body is self healing. And even if you feel like you've tried absolutely everything out there, if you are not in the state of health that you want to be in, if you don't have the quality of life that you want to have, I would suggest that you keep trying something else. And, when I was on my health journey, I would try, like, really give something a try. Don't try something for a week and quit on yourself. But
Yeah.
to me, the way that I do protocols is it has to be in 90-day increments. If you do something for 90 days and nothing changes, it's not for you. Keep moving. Like, there's so many people who spend so much money with functional medicine doctors and naturopaths, and they spend thousands and thousands. And oh, I've been working with somebody for a year. Well, if you've been working with someone for a year and you're not better, not even a little bit, it's not the person you need to be working with. Like I have clients who come to me, they've worked with everyone, and I'll put them on a protocol, and my protocols are efficient. Like I'm all about efficiency. I might give them two things to change, and within a few days, they start to feel better. That's how a proper protocol actually works. So I get it. I've been sick. I know how frustrating it is, and I know how hard it can be. But if you haven't found the answer, you need to keep looking. Don't give up on yourself because everyone deserves health and vitality. And as long as you're willing to commit to your journey and do what is necessary, it's just a matter of finding the thing that's going to work for you. And yeah, like don't give up on yourself. Keep going. Keep going. I wake up every day. I'm so grateful, like beyond grateful that I never quit on myself. I never quit.
Yeah. Beautiful words to end on. And ultimately, it's your health and your life that's on the line. So, yeah, definitely never quit
Yeah.
on yourself. And yeah, Julie, again, thank you again for jumping on the show. Everyone, be sure to go check out those links, and we will see you all in the next episode.
Thank you
Bye.
so much for this. Thank you.
Yeah.